If there's something you wanted to do for a long time, but you never seem to get around it, maybe you haven't started writing that book yet, or you haven't started a YouTube channel, or you haven't applied for that big job, whatever it may be, it might even be something in your personal life. If you're not going towards it, although it's something that continuously comes back up in your mind, then most likely there's a fear of judgment involved. And it's not on a conscious level very often, but subconsciously that might be the key to finally stepping into the life you always wanted. So today I'm going to teach you one trick that will help you stop caring what people think of you and finally go towards the life you always wanted. Before we get started, I want to remind you, if you haven't done this so far, to download the free poster on INFJ Mastery. You can check out all my courses on financial abundance and energy mastery. And if you want to take to the next level, then work with me one-on-one. Everything you need to know you can find through the links in the description. There's this metaphor I read online a while ago, and it said something like, the people that you think are going to judge you, you can probably put them into a car. So if you think about the 5 people that would judge you the most, you could probably pinpoint who is going to judge you on what. So if you're thinking about, okay, I cannot show up as the stronger version of me because person A is going to not like me anymore. Person B is going to think I'm too full of myself. If I write my book, like another person will say, I don't know what I'm writing about. So there's probably a person you can really assign some kind of quality to that will be a representation of what you fear. At the end of the day, of course, those judgments are based on what we feel internally. Because if somebody would come up to me and say, why are you not blonde? Like, how can you go around and not being blonde? I'm not going to care because I don't have a judgment about my hair color. So on the other hand, if somebody would have told me, oh, you're selfish and you're only thinking about yourself, that would have really hurt me 10 years ago because that was something that I struggled with. And so now that I've faced a lot of my fears, I have actually learned the fastest trick to overcome them, which is to actually put it out on the table. So there were people in my life who I knew would have judgments about me, and at the same time, those were people that I respected. I've told that story before about one of my friends who was very much opinionated about the music that I posted. So this was many years ago. I had a phase where I constantly posted music on Facebook, and it was a way of expressing myself. And for me, that was about energy. So I didn't care what kind of political statements that song necessarily had. I didn't care that it was like, explicit lyrics. I really didn't care about those things because for me, it came from a different direction. That's how it was for me. I was looking at the beat. I was looking at the emotional atmosphere. I looked at the energy of the song. And so for me, it was really about showing this one side of me that my friend wasn't used to. But at the end of the day, it is part of me. And so what I did was I actually started posting this and knowing that she's going to react this way, because through that, I actually presented something to the outside that, people could judge. And as I mentioned in this example, I actually thought of her specifically, and it was really much saying, well, this is part of me. This is not just about a song, of course. This is about a representation of who I am and how I see myself. A song is, of course, like a mundane thing, like who really cares? But it is a representation of a characteristic that I have within me that I hadn't really shown her to that extent before. And I really got to a place where I said, if she wants to stay in my life, she has to accept me with this. She also had to accept the fact that I had friends that she didn't really like because she had certain judgments about them that I didn't have. Right? And very often I tried to kind of like keep it at bay. I tried to present this part of me that she was going to like. So we would have a positive relationship. She would think that we're, peers and we have so much in common. What I've learned though is that if you are doing this, you're first off playing roles. Yes, you can be a chameleon, but you're playing roles when you're with this one person, then you're playing another role when you're at work. And it is important to kind of like have a base of this is who I am. That doesn't mean that everybody at your work has to know what kind of music you listen to or, what kind of clothes you wear when you go out. That's not what this is about. But think about all the ways that you as a person are holding yourself back because of the fear of what people might think if they would see that version of you. For me, when I started this channel, for example, there was so much fear of people are going to think I'm weird. People are going to figure out that I'm not normal, that I'm not like them, that I have different interests, that I'm more of the nerd than the cool kid. So things like this. And at the same time, of course, when I started doing this channel, for example, there was this fear of, oh, what if what I have to say has no merit? What if what I have to say isn't really helpful? What if people tell me, oh, you're not saying anything new, or you're fraud, or whatever it may be? So those fears were really there. But what I've learned is that, of course, those fears are based on things that I care about. Because other people might have completely different fears. Other people might have the fear that other people might perceive them as weak. I, for example, never had that fear. I never had the fear of people thinking that I'm too weak, because I probably have actually come from the other direction where I felt like, oh, I actually have to pretend I'm weaker than I am, because every single time I showed up in my full capacity, it more likely led to people, leaving me behind or, getting out of my way because it confronts them too much, than the other way around. But why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because it is very subjective what we judge ourselves for. And therefore, we pick people who are representation for that. If I had a problem with the fact that I'm not a natural blonde, I would surround myself with people who would only have this ideal, and they would be around me and continuously show up and remind me of the fact that, yes, I'm not how they would want me to be. Since I don't have that judgment about me, this is not a topic in my life. And of course, something like hair color is a very superficial example, but you can apply it to everything. You can apply it to your education. You can apply it to, your status, as in like, are you married yet or not? Whatever it may be, it applies if it is something that is a judgment that you have about yourself. If you think for yourself as being too poor, you're probably going to be surrounded by people who tell you again, oh, why are you not making enough money? On the other hand, if this is not a topic for you, then you probably don't even have conversations like this with the people in your life. So you can apply this to everything. And so what is the trick here? Well, the trick is twofold. First off, really assign a person to your judgment, because most likely you can. And think of like the 5 people you could put in a car. Who are the people who would judge you the most? And you would know they would, because they're a representation of what you judge about yourself the most. It doesn't even mean that you have a problem with it, but it means that it's obvious to you that this is something that people might judge. And when you have those 5 people in your car, you can narrow it down. You can start with one area, but it's important to kind of like narrow it down and say, okay, if I had to put all of them in the car, who would it be and what would they judge me for? And then to kind of like live it all out. That doesn't mean that you have to go overboard, but I promise you, if you have a choice of, okay, what am I going to wear the next time I'm going to go to lunch with that friend? Am I going to wear something that I know she approves of? Or am I going to wear something where I know like she will have a problem with it? If I voice my political opinion, and most of the time I keep it hidden, maybe next time when I'm with them, I will tell them my convictions. I will tell them what I believe, knowing that they have different opinions. Doesn't mean you have to get into big confrontations, but when you do that, you're saying, are you going to accept me knowing this aspect of me? If we have, for example, different political views, that does not mean that we have to talk about politics all the time. But if you can't accept me for having a different opinion than you, then maybe this doesn't work out. Because remember, we want to belong, we want to be accepted, we don't want to fit in. Fitting in is omitting or changing who we are or pretending we're something else in order to fit into a box that is not really who we are. And that is not healthy in any kind of capacity. And what I have found, I've been doing this for 11 years now. I've worked with so many people, and I've helped a lot of people get over their own fears, that this fear of judgment is holding back most. In most cases, it's not rocket science to go after your dream. And sometimes you can pinpoint it very much. You can say, I would like to work at this institution, but I don't think that I have what it takes. I would love to move to a different city. I would love to, change my life in this one area. Well, what is keeping you back? Most likely judgment. In the fewest cases, it's something like, oh, I need a certain education and there's no way for me to get it. Most of the time, we will find a way. You can even ask ChatGPT. There will be a way to get it done. And it's not that is holding most people back. It's the fear of judgment, and it's the fear of judgment that we carry within ourselves. So remember, it's about narrowing it down to, let's say, 5 people, and then starting with one. may be the one that's holding you back the most. And then asking yourself, how can I show up in a way where I'm confronted with that fear? I always say we have to feel it in order to heal it. So what are we actually looking for? We're looking for something that will get us out of our comfort zone. We will look for something where we will be confronted with that judgment and we can sit in it. So it's not about getting overwhelmed. If you, for example, wanted to start a YouTube channel, I would definitely not recommend that you record something extremely controversial and then put it up and then be open for people to bash you. Because most of the time that step is too big and it's actually not going to help you in any kind of way. Because what we want is for our internal voice to be quiet. We want it to not be a problem for us, because once it's not a problem for us, we will make choices based on, is this really something that is beneficial for others? Is this really something that I want to say? Or am I just inviting in or keeping away potential judgment? So what would be a step that I would recommend? A step I would recommend would be to record yourself. That in itself would already trigger you, because it's a step towards that direction. Setting up a YouTube channel without a video will also get you out of your comfort zone. It will really make you face those fears. It is an uncomfortable feeling. If you start a new job, applying for that job will already make you nervous. As I told you in one of the videos I did a couple of weeks ago, we're moving right now, so my kids are going to a new kindergarten. And when I got the new contract for the kindergarten, I took a step back. I didn't expect this, but this made me nervous. Because it's a new environment, I don't know how the kids are going to react. And I understood, okay, there's a fear here. And I didn't know that I was going to have that fear. It was not a fear of judgment. It was a fear of, oh, how are they going to handle it? Am I going to be in control? Can I save them from that? That's a topic for another day. But generally speaking, you can feel those emotions. And sometimes you don't know that they're going to come. But the fear of judgment is exactly that you're going to do something and you're going to have this uncomfortable feeling while you're doing it. My kids haven't started the school yet. They haven't seen, the new teachers. Maybe they're going to love it and it's going to be no problem at all. But once I got that email, I already got that feeling. And that's the same thing with you stepping forward in whatever kind of direction it is. Even if it's about having that uncomfortable conversation with a relative. Even if it's something like posting a song that your friend is going to see and they're going to have an opinion on it. Think about how small of a thing that is. And still, it was present enough for me to think that I might lose a friendship over it. Thankfully, I didn't, but it did change our dynamic because I actually showed more of who I am to my friend. So if you think about it in this way, it will help you to understand that no matter what kind of judgments people are going to have about you, you're most likely already assigning them to a specific person. And then once you're confronted with that judgment, it will be a reflection of a judgment that you have about yourself. Again, it doesn't mean that you judge yourself for this thing, but that you think that other people will judge you for it, and that in itself will make you uncomfortable. Some things people might judge me for, as I said with the example with the blonde hair, I'm not going to care. Other things, it might make me uncomfortable, even if I personally stand behind what I'm saying and why I believe in this. Because it might cause confrontation, because they will recognize that I'm just different than them, and through that, the connection might, dissolve. Or it could be, as I said, if you want to write a book, that you're afraid of the judgment of people saying, well, you actually have nothing important to say. Whatever it may be, at the end of the day, the trick to stop caring what people think about you is to actually evoke this feeling. Not to go all out, as I said, we're not talking about you creating a video with all your controversial opinions and just asking for it, because that is just self-harm in so many ways, but to do it strategically, to say, what is a step that I can take that will get me out of my comfort zone, but will not overwhelm me? So if you record yourself, that will already make you uncomfortable. If you create a YouTube channel, that will make you uncomfortable. If you load up a video that you've created, but you don't even want to publish, it's unlisted, nobody can see it but you, trust me, that in itself will evoke those emotions. And we want those emotions. We have to feel something in order to heal it. Because most of the time, those fear of judgments are really dormant, so we're not really aware that they're there, but we're still carrying them with us. And every single time you have those fears within you, they're like a boundary that's keeping you from taking the next step, from expanding your life, from living a life that's more in alignment with the life you want to live. So for me, for example, that meant when I, stopped working, and I had worked like 7 years in the corporate world. I, have a master's in economics. So my entire life has kind of like led down this career path, and to kind of like say goodbye to that was a big step. And I remember writing my resignation letter and like having it ready a month before I wanted to hand it in. And just writing it made me really uncomfortable. But through that process, it allowed me to kind of like address those emotions early on and kind of deal with them for a month before I then had the phone call with my then boss and like told him I'm gone. Like, that's it. So this is something you can apply to everything in your life. And now when I think about that situation, I think, okay, that's just another part of my life that's gone. That's no big deal. Like, that was just part of my bigger journey. Back then, it felt like I'm stepping out of the norm and I'm creating a life that's completely off the grid. That's how it felt in the moment, but that's not really the whole truth, because there is no whole truth, right? It's a matter of, what do I personally think about that step? Does this really bother me? Do I have fears that are holding me back? And the more you're confronting yourself with them, the less you're going to really care. There are always going to be people who want to judge you and who will have an opinion, but most of the time, like, once they see that you're not bothered and you're still going to do the same thing, they just stop. Like, I remember when I first started doing this channel that people wrote me, in the sense of, oh, what are you doing? Like, your little channel, and what are you talking about? And that kind of way. And I really didn't buy the bait. Like, that in itself didn't make me uncomfortable. Nowadays, they just see, okay, she actually stuck with it. She actually is successful. So what is there to say? It's much easier to say things when you're just starting out and you're doing something that they're not daring to do. Because most people think like, oh, I could do this and that and the other, but are you actually doing it? And it's not about doing something that's extraordinary from society's perspective, because most of the time that doesn't even exist. There are people who look at me and think like, okay, she's doing like some little unimportant thing, and others think, oh, wow, I wish I could do that. So there's not one institution or one person who has like the overall say of what you're doing is good or bad or successful or not. So it's really about how we look at our life and how we like what we're doing. And seeking out this judgment in a controlled way where you know what you're doing and you're doing it on purpose and you're expecting it will make it that much easier. Because then you're on top of it. You are in front of the wave. You know that this is what is expected, and you know that this is just part of the journey, and it always gets easier. The things that I was afraid of judgment for like 10 years ago are not even a topic anymore. And those were things that I had a real core problem about. And nowadays, I approach things completely differently. So when I just feel a certain emotion coming up, I'm not even thinking about it. I go straight out. Like, I express myself in a way of, let me just get it out there so I can actually move forward. I don't care if people think that I'm bringing it out in order to make a point. I don't care if people have an opinion about it at all. I just know that once I express something that I might keep hidden, it will help me to overcome something. That's all that matters. Because if you start playing the game from the perspective of, is this holding me back? What can I do to let this thing not be an issue anymore and I'm ready for the next big thing? You just really get excited about it. This is not something to fear. This is something to embrace. And you know that this is just part of, the healing journey. And it's not the kind of healing where you just sit and you think through things, but you actually take action on things until this feeling is just not there anymore. You don't care. Like my friend that I told you about the music, this was like 8 years ago, I think. Like, she doesn't care now. She's accepted this. If I post music now, I don't even think she looks at my page at all. Like, nobody does really. But the main point is, though, it's not something that is an issue, because now she has seen that part of me. She has been confronted with that. She can decide what kind of relationship she wants to have with me. And on some level, it might very well be that there is more of a distance. But that's okay, because then you're showing up more authentically. And when you approach major life decisions and life directions from that perspective, everything gets not only easier, but more exciting. This is something that I'm looking forward to, because you get that emotional charge, you get that adrenaline in your body, and you know it's a good thing, right? You're confronting yourself with something that you're currently afraid of. You get to feel it, then you get to heal it, and you're ready for the next thing. And the thing that frightened you yesterday isn't even a topic anymore. So the main two things to remember from this video is, first off, really narrow it down to the 5 people that you could put in a car that would be a representation of the judgments that you're afraid of, and then start bringing out what you think they might judge you for in a very controlled manner, in a way where you feel like it gets you out of your comfort zone, but it doesn't overwhelm you. It can be a small step, but every single time you do that and you stand firmly with that until that feeling passes, you're over it, and the next time it won't be an issue anymore. And the less fears you have, the more steps you're going to take towards creating your version of an epic life. Remember, if you haven't done this so far, to download the free poster on INFJ Mastery and check out my courses on either financial abundance or energy mastery for INFJs. And if you want to take it to the next level, then work with me one-on-one. Everything you need to know you can find through links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then check out the video you see on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.